just having fun with this technology. Anyway, I guess welcome to Regarding Texas Freemasonry. We're a couple light and added a new guest. Tony, take it away. Introduce.
Well, this is my grandfather slash brother, um, which I would say for years he was more like a dad and a grandfather. And then when I became a master mason, took our understanding, friendship, brotherly to a whole nother level. I don't think anybody would ever understand that unless you've been through this. So for me, it's magical. It's awesome. Um, I tell guys that want to get into it all the time. If your grandfather, dad, whoever is still alive, don't wait till you're retired, kids out of college, whatever your excuse is. Somebody in your family would love to see you go through this. So don't drag your feet. Make it happen. And I'll say he hinted throughout the years. I can even remember when I was a little kid, hints he gave me here and there and stuff like that. But he never forced it or put it on me or, just so I kicked originally I always say I joined it because he wanted me to. And now I kick myself for not doing it sooner. Uh, Fraternity's been a phenomenal thing for me. Um, Even my wife says it kind of makes me a better man. So I've enjoyed the journey, and like I said, I hate that I didn't do it sooner. Get to meet great people like yourself, and that's helping us through this technology, such thing to reach many other brothers, and hopefully continue down the line. So,
For
with that
sure.
being said, my grandfather slash brother,
And his name is
David Davis,
David Davis. So nice to meet you, sir. How you doing?
and he goes by Duck.
No,
Because he's a great hunter. Is that correct?
He's had a few hunts in his belt. You used to hunt a whole lot more.
yeah.
So, so sir, how kind of tell me about your journey in
Well,
masonry.
I was 22 years old and I joined this East Houston 1299 Lodge. My brother-in-law was the worshipful master, but that wasn't why I joined. I always wanted to join. And I joined in 1962,
Wow.
and I was raised in the first part of 63. But back then, you had so many members, man, you'd have to wait 5 years to work a chair.
Right, absolutely. That was kind of my next question: is what are some of the biggest things you've seen change over the years? I mean, the numbers, obviously.
The numbers, the main thing.
Yep.
What do you think drove the numbers to be higher back then? Was it because of smaller community in towns, or and you had to depend on everybody?
Well, I think it was that too. Of course, back then, 1299 was, you could say, a police lodge. About a third of them was either deputy sheriffs or police.
I'd still say law enforcement's still pretty big in
And
masonry.
For sure.
because we met in an old house, and we met there about 2 or 3 years, and then the members built this huge lodge. We
Wow.
built it ourselves, and it was a nice one.
That is
And
awesome.
we kept it probably 20, 25 years, and then they built a low interest apartment next to it. You'd take your life to even go to a meeting, not knowing where your car would be out there when you got out or not. So, so eventually had to sell it and move. And we went to a church. We met in a church for about 3 years. And then after that, we never could find a place to build. We still had the money. And then we moved over on Federal Road and met in another lodge. I can't remember that lodge. We met there and still meeting there, but now they're selling it.
Really?
And our lodge got so small now that they only meet 4 times a year.
Is that right?
And the guy at the worship master lives in
West Texas.
West Texas and drives in to hold the meetings 4 times a
So
year.
that building has Galena Park Lodge in it and North Shore Lodge. in
North
it.
Shore's where we met.
Wow.
North Shore Lodge.
But
number
now they're selling
13.
it because the
53.
land and the building got too expensive. Well, it was so they're selling it and making that big money. And I don't know where. He said he didn't know where they were moving to.
Yeah.
But we were going to try to follow them.
And you're been in this 60 years?
62 years.
62 years.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I got my. And in
Lifetime.
1964, I was working in the jail for the sheriff's department, and it was a lieutenant there. Got to talking to him, and I joined the Scottish Rite.
Oh, wow.
And matter of fact, I got my 62-year certificate about a month ago.
Oh, that is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What a long, strange trip it's been, huh?
Yeah. It was enjoyable, but then I moved out in the country and I couldn't go as much as I used to go. Man, I used to, when I for the first 15 years that lodge never opened without I was there.
Right. Yeah.
I know I went here a while back and I sat behind the chair and I could still do it, but I couldn't do it by myself. I'd lost it, you know.
Yeah.
Just to get,
Tony can tell you after I went through mine, it was a month later. I was struggling for everything. It was like I had no idea what I was doing, and it's funny how that stuff just.
well, you know, when I first went in there, God, that was great. And I got about 3 or 4 teachers, and I just couldn't learn that first thing.
Yeah.
And I run into an old boy he worked for the state. He was mowed the sides of the roads. And he said, well, I'll teach you. Old country looking guy. And I want to tell you, within a month, I learned that whole thing.
Wow. That's impressive.
And then he come back and taught me the other 2.
Yeah.
But it was just, he could say it and it would just melt in your mind. He was that good.
Yeah, I struggle with. Well, Tony knows working with Brad, and Brad's an amazing teacher, and I felt part of it was a struggle for me because I thought this guy has got to be ready just to choke me,
Right.
because just getting words mixed up, just losing, and then I'd start making stuff up, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? You can't do that. That's not how this works."
See, back when I went through, you didn't do it one-on-one. Like when I took mine, every time it was 4 people in there. And
Wow.
that made it that much harder because you got I think I was number 3, and you only got every
Third line.
third line, and
Yep.
you had to follow it to be able to answer yours.
You got stuck with the obligation. Woo!
But it was harder than if you was just one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going back right now, and for the certificates, and getting all that stuff, in my mind again. And I think it might be harder the second time around, at least for me.
The hardest part for me is I mix like the first one with the second one, the third one.
Yeah.
I get bits and pieces of this one and that one and make my 4th version, if you will.
Absolutely.
I'll be driving, and sometimes I'll almost mix them up.
Yeah.
And then I'll catch myself and go back and start over.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's me. Once I mess up, I have to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's just the way my brain works. It's all linear to me. So if I get messed up on a line, even if I'm almost done, I got to start
I
all the
done
way
got
over.
old. My memory's not as good.
Oh, mine's not either. So
But I
don't worry
still
about
do
it.
pretty good. I know pretty good.
That's
But I was
awesome.
lucky. Back when it was reasonable, I got life memberships in both of them, Scottish Rite,
Oh,
and
nice.
back then they were like $500.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just actually starting my journey with Scottish Rite.
Oh, you'll love it, man.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I really am.
Yeah.
It's going to be wonderful. You know,
Have you took it the degrees yet?
not yet. Preparing
All right,
to.
when you take them, take that 3 or 4 day one. Take the long one.
Take the long version, long form.
Yeah, so because you get to see everything.
Yeah, that's the short form. The short
With
form.
the short one, they just skip from.
They have a name for that, and I'm drawing a blank what it's called.
Don't
And
know.
I don't know how they do it now. Back when I went through, you got a 14-degree ring, gold ring, at the end of it. I
Man.
still wear mine as a wedding thing.
Oh, I guarantee you they're probably not doing that anymore.
No,
The
probably not.
price of gold.
You got to pay a hefty dues
But it
fee.
was
Yeah.
it's a wide one. It's a pretty, and then it's got all that writing inside of it.
Man, that's amazing. That's Tony knows that's the stuff I really thrive on is the history. Knowing
But I
the
went
differences
like
between.
Friday and Saturday, and the next weekend I went. I think it was Friday, and you finish up on Saturday.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, I think.
But you got every one of them all the way through.
Yeah, I think the way they do it now, if I read it correctly, it's like God, I'd have to look like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. I think maybe I don't know. I'd have to look
From
again.
dusk till dawn.
Yeah, I mean it's a
But it's a beautiful all the way through. Some of it's a little better than others.
sure. Yeah,
They'll
absolutely.
always all be in full dress.
Wow. Yeah, I was, Tony, I was talking to brother.
But just don't volunteer. Just sit in that seat.
Just stay put and try and hide.
Stay put in that seat.
That's awesome. Good
'Cause
advice.
I want volunteers up there.
Yeah, I did a lot of volunteering with that guy that's sitting right next to you at the very beginning. We've got
Yeah.
It's fun, like I say.
I like people I can count on.
Hey, I was there with you, man.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like what you were saying before. The lodge never seemed like it was open without Tony being there.
Yeah.
So and of course Tony was the first guy I met. At the time he was master, and when I started getting interested and wanted to petition, and Tony, I was talking to Brother Aaron earlier today. He wanted to be here. He couldn't be here tonight because of a family obligation and everything. But one thing he mentioned is that this podcast could be for not just for Masons, which I think is really important. The point that he's bringing up is that it's for anybody that is interested. And I had an associate this week it's one of my wife's associates actually, and I don't know, he knows that I'm a Mason, and it turns out that his grandfather was a Mason. And so he was kind of talking to me on speakerphone, and he said, you Masons are so mysterious. And I
But
said,
I'll never make 33rd. My brother was 33rd.
wow. Why you say that?
Well, you got to do too much stuff to make.
I understand. Family.
He was a Shriner, 33rd, York Ride, and the other one.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions since Chris finished the story here. But
No, I just all I was getting at was even with his grandfather being a Mason, he was the.
But I can assure you, when I went through the apprentice, they were all policemen, most of them detectives.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was
And
actually just at a lodge this week.
When I got through, they scared me to death. And got through, when I go home, my wife said, "What's wrong with you? You don't look the same." And our lodge was in an upstairs building. I guarantee you, if I could have opened that window, I'd have jumped out. It was
That's
that
funny.
bad.
They had no mercy on you, huh?
No.
Just in picking on you? Was that it?
But you look back and it was funny, but man, it wasn't funny then.
I understand.
So-
I do understand that. Yeah. Tony got me through mine, thank goodness. He's very kind to me. But I didn't realize that I was going to get such a wonderful manual for living. And every day that I open, the monitor, I go, boy, I failed at that part today. I'll have to do better tomorrow. Oh, I failed at that part too. But it's an amazing manual.
But one thing I learned in life, I was a big boss where I worked. Mm-hmm. Not the big one, but and you hear these people say, "All them people, they Masons, they stick together, they get a good job." But I never wore my ring to work.
Right.
In other words, I was straight. And most of them didn't even know I was a Mason.
Yeah. I went through so much of my life not even realizing that my grandfather was a Mason. It wasn't something he spoke about.
Yeah. And but I never wore that ring when I worked.
Yeah.
Just on that account, because I treated everybody fairly.
Right.
And I had some Masons that worked there, and I knew they were Masons.
Yeah.
You hear it now. All they are is Masons. They stick together, They don't even know what they're talking about.
Tony still hadn't hired me.
Oh, well, I had a question. So you had 10 brothers and sisters, or total. He was the youngest.
I was number 12.
And
Wow.
So how many out of that 12 were Eastern Star and also Masons?
5. I had 7 brothers, and 5 of them was Masons.
So did they all join down here, or was it at home place?
No, they belonged. My oldest brother lived in Kansas. Matter of fact, he was a worshipful master 6, 8 times. And then my next brother, he was just a Mason. And the next brother was worshipful master 2 or 3 times, and he was heavy on the Eastern Star.
Gotcha.
So, and the other brother belonged in Garrison.
Now think about that, Tony, how what he just said, because with that many more members and it taking that long to work the chairs, to be a past master that many times.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Were they back to back or a few years apart, or
what?
When he was a worshipful master, was it back to back, or did it?
No, you had somebody standing in line. They just went through it, and the next right on through it. The only thing I ever got to do was just, I think the one that standing outside.
Oh, that Tyler.
That's as far as I got after all those years.
Wow.
I mean, it was that many. It was amazing how many people we had. And they come
at least 20, 30 people in the lodge.
Oh, it'd be like 40 or 50 or
40?
60.
Could you imagine that, Chris?
That
Not in our lodge, I can't.
Oh.
I mean, we couldn't even put 4 lodges together and make that, could we?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking 50 people, 40 people in our physical lodge is fire hazard.
So there was one time. So
at one time, all of them was like that.
So when I was worshipful master, we did have one meeting. We ran out of all the aprons. We had to open our suitcase that we do for funerals and get all the aprons out of there. That's how many guests we had one time when I was worshipful master.
My brother-in-law had all of, he had all what do you call it? It went certified on all that
Oh,
stuff.
A certificate, B
He had
certificate.
all the certificates. And we'd go out to these little outlying towns, and we'd go as far as 200 miles away.
Wow.
And you'd be surprised back then how many people was in them little country lodges.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they may smoke or dip snuff, but they were there. And I always had plenty to eat and, food and drink. But their numbers were good.
Wow.
Do you feel like the lodges competed with the churches, or the church competed with the lodges?
I don't think the churches are competing with the lodges. I think it's like everything else. The churches are going through the same thing the Masonics going through. Just like I'm on the board of the American Legion here. Same thing.
Yeah.
The numbers is just not there. People's not joining. I don't think they have time or don't want to take time. Because,
Yeah.
well, I'll give you an example. We've got $1.5 million building. It's 220,000 square foot, and it's about 8 years old. Well, we had an old building, prices got the high. We sold it for $1 million and built this. We bought 5 acres and built that new one and paid cash for it.
That's amazing.
We had like 429 members. How many comes to the meeting? You'd be lucky to have 25.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just hardly have enough to hold a meeting. But yet they pay their dues.
Yeah.
But they never come.
We've experienced the same thing, I think, Tony. I think like what you're saying is every lodge is kind of feeling that. Whether it's, maybe if it's age, time, family obligations, I don't know.
And you and I have that conversation all the time. How can we attract the young people? What are they wanting? What are they desiring? What is it they had back then that attracted people?
Less TV channels.
I think back then it was more, like the American Legion. The old veterans were more dedicated. Now, like this year, we got about 27 new members.
Yeah.
But, they don't come. Probably 2 out of that 27 may come every once in a while. They pay the dues, but they don't come.
Would you say when you first got into it that it was still a older crowd? So kind of after the kids got out of the house through school, and then is that something we're facing now? Because everybody, say 35 and younger's starting their family, just having kids, and they're not going to be as free.
I would say that because it was very few. I was probably one of the youngest ones there. Most of them were older.
Yeah.
Most of them dead now, but they were.
Right.
But they'd get a few young ones now and then, but very few.
Brad would remember a lot better than me. Me and Brad went to, at our last Master's Wardens and Secretary meeting we had a guest speaker come in and show the diagram of ages and stuff like that. And I want to say the average age was like 50 something. Mm-hmm. That is about the average or the biggest population to the age.
Yeah, because I'd say back when I joined, they were between about 50 and 80. Mm-hmm. Most of them.
Well, and I think, I mean, when I look at it, as I look at my experience, my journey, it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I kind of started thinking in terms of, hey, I need better guidance. I need better instruction. I need a better code. And I started thinking about my own mortality and things like this that I wasn't thinking about when I was 25.
But back then when they joined, man, we had a tough investigate committee. In other words, they were investigated thoroughly.
Right.
A lot of them made it, a lot of them didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you had to do that,
Sure, absolutely.
But I think now they've changed the black balls, and back then one got you.
Really?
But
No, it's majority now.
yeah, and one black ball, you was gone for a year, and you could come back and apply.
That's pretty strict.
That's
It
brutal.
was strict,
That's brutal.
but people loved it.
Yeah.
They kept them
Well,
weeded out.
and you know, I've heard several people talk about that it was more of an honor than to be a Mason.
Yeah, well,
You were looked on as, oh, Mr. So and so, he's a Mason. They don't even know they know he's Mr. Jones or whoever, but they don't know anything else. All they know is he's a Mason, and wow, he's a great guy.
I'll give you a good example. I had an uncle. He died at 101.
Wow.
And he was owned an appliance company in that little old town I'm from. Well, he tried for years, and every year he'd get a black ball. Well, they finally knew who it was, you know. All right. Well, he petitioned for year after year. And the day that old man died, the next year he got in there.
Really?
He was a worshipful master 14 times. And
Wow.
you wouldn't find a better Mason that knew the work than him. I went to some of his meetings when he was like 95.
Sharp as a tack.
That's
He knew
amazing.
more than I did.
That is absolutely
He could
amazing.
give the obligations. He could do it all.
That's incredible. Hey, look, there's Brad. There's Brother
Brad
Brad
is
joining.
about to join us.
Look at him. I thought he's on call, so I figured he was just going to be working.
Hey guys,
Hey, buddy. How you
Hey,
doing?
hey.
what's up, man?
Hey.
I'm gonna be driving home, but I joined in on the audio. I'm not gonna join in video because you won't be able to see me.
That's quite all right. I want you to focus on the road, man. You've had a rough one.
Oh no, I'm good, man. This is my my time where I make my money, so it's all good. I'm used to it.
Good, good. Well,
How you guys doing tonight?
be safe.
Good, good.
What are y'all talking about?
Man, we're just history. Masonic
History.
history, the way that it used to be, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Tony,
Brad, this is my grandfather / brother. He's a 62-year Master Mason. He's also 62 in the Scottish Rite. And so we were just kind of talking about how things were 62 years ago.
the good old days.
And I just mentioned you a few minutes ago when we went to the what is it? Wardens, Masters, and Secretary.
Yeah,
The
MWSA.
average age of a Mason when they kind of come average, and if I remember correctly, it was about 50.
Yeah, 45, 50, something like
Yeah.
that.
That's about right.
So,
Yeah.
but
Brad, something that amazing that we just discovered is, back then, the lodges would be packed, wall to wall.
Oh yeah. Well, that I've been hearing a lot about that, and a lot of it was because it was after the war, and the men that came home from the war were used to that brotherhood, and looking for that brotherhood, and they couldn't find it anywhere, but they found it in Masonry.
Right.
Because Masonry is not religious, and some of those guys weren't real religious, but they believed in a higher power, and immortality of the soul and all that. And a lot of them faded out over time, and maybe there was too many people at the time.
Most of them just died out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can see that too.
So I wanted to bring up a point he said about one black ball and you're out. So that goes back to kind of the rule of why we don't publish EAs and fellowcrafts their names anywhere.
Yeah.
Until they become a Master Mason, just for that simple reason. If somebody doesn't like them in town and could, lack of better words, vote them out.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
I'm
never
sure.
understood that until just now. I was today years old when I learned that.
I'm sure that was a lot bigger of an issue back in the day than it is now. But
Yeah, I mean, back then, if you traveled, I don't know, 10 miles, you went halfway across the country. Now, if we don't go 60 miles to a job site, we're barely crossing or, barely doing anything.
yeah, I'm 39 miles from my house right now out here out here working.
Yeah, my trip to the office is 55, right about 55 miles.
Hmm.
But it, you know, I can get in my Ford and I can go. It's all right. Hey, Brad, something I wanted to tell you about that brother Aaron. I was just speaking about him, and he wanted to be here tonight, but he'll show up and join us for future stuff. But he was just talking about the importance of making sure that this podcast that it was known that this is not just for Masons. This is for anybody that's interested in it, and to help kind of carve and scope what we talk about and to generate interest. Because there's, and that's kind of what I was telling Tony a little while ago, is had a gentleman just this week, just a couple of days ago, in fact, ask me, or tell me, you Masons are so mysterious, and turns out his grandfather was a Mason. But I'm amazed at mysterious, maybe in bits and parts, but there is so much information out there, and not to mention current Masons that are more than happy to kind of talk to anybody that's interested, right?
It's not that
Yeah.
we have secrets, it's things that binds us together as a fraternity that makes it special to us. I wouldn't say that's a secret. I mean, so there's no secrets out there for anybody that's watching or interested. But you probably have your best friend every time you see him. Hey, bro, well, just whatever.
Right.
I mean, only you and your bro know that.
No.
And so if you want to call that a secret, it's a secret, but it's not really a secret. There's just things that we do that make it close knit for us as brothers.
Definitely. I would strongly recommend anybody interested to actually ask a Mason, because there is more disinformation out there than there is factual
Most
good information.
definitely, completely.
So here's a question, and I heard a really good answer from a past Grand Master of Ohio on a different podcast. But if somebody was to come up to you and say, what is Masonry? What would your answer be?
That could go many different directions for me, but ultimately a community charity organization, just like any other charity organization, but we don't brag about it. We just do it and make it happen.
Well, and what is it? What is it, Brad? You repeat it quite often. It's a moral system veiled in allegory.
Yeah, it's a peculiar system of morality veiled in. So the correct saying is veiled in. What is the word? It's like stories, veiled in stories and something about symbols. I forget what it is, but I thought it sounded better veiled in symbols and allegory. Yeah.
Right.
Allegory is the word.
That sounds like you got some kind of secret.
Yeah.
Talk English
Yeah, that's
now.
what I'm saying. So the way this past Grand Master he basically said, okay, well, if somebody asks me what is Masonry, why am I Mason? Why am I a Mason? He would ask questions back. Are you a sociable person? Do you like to be around people? Do you like to educate yourself and better your life? If you answer yes to both of those things, you'll probably be a good Mason.
Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be a Mason. And I love those types of things. I'm a sociable person for the most part. And I really love educating myself and helping myself be a better human, a better father, a better worker, a better brother, a better son, everything, better husband. Anyway,
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we could talk about that real soon, Brad.
yeah,
I don't think he meant it the way you think he meant it, Brad.
No, I think we also owe Brad congratulations. He just got voted in last night to be this year's Worshipful Master for Royce City. So that's pretty exciting. Go, Brad.
Are you
yeah,
excited,
that'd be
buddy?
fun. Yeah, I really am.
Those hands couldn't get no higher, I tell you.
I've already felt the pull of people trying to bring me down already, though.
Is that right?
But I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Grab a
really
hold of
not.
those that support you and run with it.
Because I've been out there running, and I look behind, and there's people following me. So I'm just going to keep running
There you
and
go.
keep that fire burning, brother.
Yeah, man. I mean, how I know you've worked so hard at this, and it's so impressive. I mean, you're right there at the top of the list for me as far as mentors go, and there's got to be just a tremendous amount or a tremendous feeling of accomplishment for you. This is a high honor, man. You know, and you've done the work.
Yeah, yeah. There's a little bit, but I'm not. Really, I don't really feel like I'm doing it for that. I feel like I'm doing it because I want to help my brothers, and I just want to rally this old lodge that we're a part of. You know,
Amen.
I want to keep it going for maybe my son, in another 10 years, and
Right.
maybe his son in another 20 years, or whatever, however many years, my grandson or my great grandsons. I'd like to see them see masonry the way I see it.
Right.
I've got a lot of really cool mentors too, which they're I try to just do what they do. Like, I see the things that they're doing, and I just try to do what they're doing. I'm just a parrot, really. I'm doing what they've done.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
You're the Bruce Lee of masonry. Take a little bit of this style, a little bit of that style.
You're surrounded by some just even on this phone or on this call, man. You're surrounded by some greatness. So
Yeah.
Oh, with that note, I gotta go. No.
yeah, Tony, dude, you were so wonderful, and you made it easy for me.
I appreciate that.
You really did, man, and you were right there on point, and keeping me going and going, hey, be here, do this, we're gonna do this, go do that, and it really got me excited right from the beginning.
Awesome.
Yeah. So no pressure, Brad.
I actually had a cool experience with one of our scholarship recipients' father last night.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to be knocking soon.
He's a principal of a kind of one of those alternative schools here in town, and he just, I guess he just kind of enjoyed talking with me, and I just basically like trying to see how we can help him, or how can he help us, kind of thing. It was just conversation, really, and just made him feel welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And then he asked, like, hey, when do we meet? And I said, well, it's the first Thursday of every month. He goes, well, I'll probably be back. So, but I just made sure anytime anybody new walks into that building that I don't know, I'm a beeline right to them.
Yeah.
Another thing I noticed Tony doing was going around and just picking up people's plates, making sure they had napkins, just weird little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That makes people feel welcome, and those move mountains, man. Those small gestures, acts of service.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was all I had to say.
No, all good points, and I think that's kind of a big chunk of masonry, isn't it?
Yeah.
That extends far beyond the lodge, or it should. You
Yeah.
know, I know my experience was, again, I didn't feel like I was walking into a thing where everybody was going to look at me and, nobody'd say anything or whatever. Everybody in our lodge, I feel has that kind of thing to where they'll walk up and they'll say, hey, my name's so and so. Who are you? And what's happening? And I think I think that's just it. That's the brotherhood thing to me, simple and plain.
Yeah, I get that everywhere I travel to too.
Absolutely.
That's my favorite part of
I
this
gotta,
whole thing.
I gotta tell you guys, because I went to this week, as you two know, but I went to Brother Aaron's Lodge, East Dallas 1200. Their electricity, we didn't find out until we got there. Brother Aaron was driving us, and he got the message that the meeting had moved. But we pull up, a tree had fallen, killed all their power and everything, and luckily it was another lodge, 1310. And these guys opened their lodge. There was election night, so it was a big thing, right? And had the greatest of times. Seriously, and this is a lodge that is primarily all police officers, active or retired, and it was a hoot. I mean, just the laughter, and you could tell how close they were, but I felt that close to them, right? So I did not feel like an outsider at all. I was like, this feels like home, and get to know everybody's name and all that, and it was an amazing thing to see a lodge do that kind of work, to make another lodge feel at home, and then make a visitor like me feel at home. And it was just an amazing time. So I'm really falling in love with traveling and going to the different lodges and meeting, because every lodge feels like home.
That's a great point. I think a lot of Masons don't travel enough and get that experience. And I,
No, that's the best part of it. Visiting other lodges.
that's what the G is. You got to try everybody's green beans.
That's
I mean, come on now.
They all taste the same to me now, brother. They just do. They're just green beans.
I mean, I think the first time I met you, you asked me what that G was. I told you it stands for green beans.
You did. You did.
Since then, I hope you learned it means a few other things, but
Wait, it means something other than green beans? Brad, you never taught me this, dude.
Well, yeah, I
did. Mentor has spoken.
Yes, he has. Yes, he has. So what else is on your mind, Bradley?
Oh, we just went through our elections, and so I was reading in the monitor on that, and then Brother Drapolik was reading out the law book about the requirements to be an officer of one of the main officers of the lodge. Is you really need to be able to open and close all four lodges in order to be allowed to sit in the top 3 chairs of the lodge. You're supposed to be able to do that from all the positions. So that was one of them. So want you to attend a forum. If you're not a past master, you need to attend a forum, and you don't have to do the exam. but you have to do a forum where they kind of will teach you those things. And you have to fill out a little form.
Say a refresher course.
Or,
Hmm.
yeah, or you could be certified by a district instructor. If you fail to meet that requirement, you can be certified by a district instructor. So that's kind of, I just thought that was interesting because when I became a junior warden, I'm not so sure that I really knew how to do all
It's a daunting task, or it can be.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Here I just did all this
Uh,
memory work, and now you want me to try to put more in there? I mean, I only have
Yeah.
so many wrinkles I can put in my brain.
You got to forget other stuff to make room for the new
Yeah.
stuff you need to learn, man.
Yeah. So, going into becoming a worshipful master of the lodge, I really wanted to have a cool plan. And really the cool thing for me was the education stuff that I get to see all around as I travel around all these lodges. I get to hear a lot of different brothers talk about different things. And there was, I think, Tony, did you go with me to that contemplative masonry thing?
I did.
Okay.
That
So,
was
Brother Chuck Dunning, he wrote a book called Contemplative Masonry, and he did it was a Masonic experience, man. It was contemplative is kind of like meditative. You're meditating really, and we were meditating on the 4 cardinal virtues, and he kind of broke them down a little bit and talked about them, and then he basically was like guiding us through a meditation of readings and stuff from our monitor. That's really where I got my theme for this year of the 4 cardinal virtues. And I really want to kind of dive deep into that topic all year long. And I think it's going to be a blast. It's basically going back to the interdependence degree and just really learning all the little things that we can learn about it, because there's really a whole lot.
Well, I was going to say it's peeling an onion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just the more you peel, the deeper it goes, and it's funny because I had my monitor. I actually got it right here. I know you may not be able to see it, Bradley, but got it, and I was reading through it today, and that was one of the things that I really hung on.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, that's kind of been that's your focus, and man, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. There's a lot to the virtues, and I heard something that said basically like courage is the sum total of all the virtues. So when you live out all these virtues, you're living courageously.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just thought that was a cool thought.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Hey, I mean, do you have big plans for this year? You must already have a bunch of stuff in the works. I know you.
I do. Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
We've got a big event on September 14th where we've got some really cool speakers coming, and we're going to talk about esoteric, the internal and the external. So we're going to talk about ritual and things like that, and we're going to start out about that and then why we do that, and then we're going to break it down into the spiritual aspects of why we do that, and then we're going to talk about the external a little bit, bringing it all back around to the 4 cardinal virtues. And I have 5 different speakers, and one of them is Cody Stewart, is a Committee on Work guy, and Justin Jones and Dennis Yates, they have their podcast for Masonic Improvement. And then David Rogers was the Grand Chaplain in 2022 when Brad Billings was Grand Master. He's the big bearded guy,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's got a direct line to God
He does.
because he
It
prayed for
wouldn't
me.
surprise me if he is the man.
Yeah, so he prayed for me um, after Grand Lodge this year. He heard my voice, um, and I had just had surgery on my vocal cords, and it was my second surgery, and my voice was still pretty bad. And he prayed for me, and my voice got better.
Yeah.
I can talk now. I mean, I know the doctors had some stuff to do with it, but I really feel like David really had a direct line to God talking to him about. And he told me a line. He said, "I will await your progress with great expectations." And that's a Charles Dickens quote.
Yeah.
That kind of stuck with me anyway. I basically called him whenever my voice got better, and I was like, "Hey, my voice got better. Thanks for praying for me." And he was just it was great. It was a cool experience.
That's,
So he's one of the speakers, and then we got one more. His name is Brother Robert Park, and he's made himself available for the Grand South this year. And he's going around. This guy's done a lot for our Grand Lodge, and done a lot for Masonry itself. And he is super intelligent. And if you haven't heard him speak, you could actually go and find a video of him on the Goats of Freemasonry, the greatest of all time, from the Masonic Improvement podcast.
mm-hmm.
They're doing their top 3 podcast interviews they ever done, and he was their number 1. So you can go listen to that. You'll hear him talking, and when he talks about Masonry, it's different than a lot of other people talk about Masonry. It's interesting.
Gives you a whole
He's a
different
smart guy.
perspective.
Yeah, he's an intelligent guy.
I got that vibe from Brother Kohanke. I mean, I'm fanboying out on Brother Kohanke. I mean, he's just, but I mean, there's just some people that can explain something in a way that just works.
You're right between your eyes.
Absolutely, man. Right in the center of your brain pan, right in your heart and everything, and it just kind of comes together. And then it kind of removes some of that veil, and then I go, wow, man, I needed to work on myself in this area, or I needed to hear that way to kind of move towards the next level, just personal life, back to what you're talking about, Brad, better husband, better dad, better employee, anything, whatever, better neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked about that whenever Brother Kohanke was on there,
mm-hmm.
About the 2 greatest commandments. When they asked Jesus what the 2 greatest commandments were, he said, "There's 2: love your God, or love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And then the second one is like it: love your neighbor as yourself."
Right.
Well, Masonry doesn't really care about what God you love or whatever. They just want you to have a God, one God. Masonry works on the second one, the loving your neighbor as yourself. And so when you do that, you become a better human, a better friend, a better brother, a better husband, all those things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome, fellers. We're running up against the hour. We're probably wearing people out if we go much further than this in one clip. But thank you for Bradley, especially your driving and working, man. What a trooper! You're awesome for jumping in. Tony and family, my new family. That is awesome. Thank you for being such an outstanding example of Masonry since 1962, man. That
Yeah.
was 7
Yeah.
years before I was born.
Scottish Rite in '64.
Scottish Rite in '64, and I'm so excited because I'm, like I told you at the top, I'm getting ready to start my journey. So, brother, I'll be right there with you one day.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all I had, fellers, for this week.
Yeah, thank you. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you,
Yeah,
sir.
nice to meet you. And we will talk to y'all next week on regarding Texas Freemasonry.
That's the
Awesome.
one. Same bat time, same bat channel.